Does accountability stop at the very top or does it vanish the higher you climb? That was the explosive question at the heart of a tense hearing moment when Congressman Seth Moulton pressed Secretary Pete Hegseth about one seemingly simple issue: whether he had shared classified information on an unclassified app. It should have been a yes or no answer. Instead, what followed exposed a deeper problem in how leaders talk about accountability, secrecy, and trust. This wasn't just a clash of personalities, it was a test of whether rules that apply to ordinary service members also apply to the people who command them.
This is a gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Moulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Hegseth, I'd like to clarify a few important details for the record. When you texted the launch time for F-18s going into combat over enemy territory facing anti-aircraft missiles on an unclassified signal chat, did that launch time come from Central Command, yes or no?
I know what you're referring to, and there were no
It's a very simple question. Did it come from? It's a very
or-
simple question. Did it come from Central Command?
Well, in this committee, no way in which I communicate or what I communicate on a successful strike is something that I would share.
So you can't even identify the combatant command under which this operation occurred?
Well, everybody knows the
Okay, so everyone knows it's Central Command. So when Central Command sent you this information, did they send it on a classified system or an unclassified system?
Well, as you know, having served yourself, any way that the Secretary of Defense communicates or provides information in and of itself is classified and not to be discussed.
So what was the classification marking of the launch time when it was sent to you? Because DoD regulations require information on classified systems to be marked.
What was the classification mark time?
Yeah, what was the classification marking? Because
Again,
DoD
classifications of any information in an ongoing operation that was successful are not things that would be disclosed in a public forum.
But you can very well disclose whether or not it was classified. It's not classified to disclose whether or not it was classified. And in fact, DoD regulations state that any classified information has to be labeled with its classification. Was it classified secret or top secret?
What's not classified is that it was an incredibly successful mission against the Houthis.
Okay, so it was classified. So are you trying to say that the information was unclassified?
I'm not
Okay,
trying to say
that's what
anything.
I thought. You're not saying that. So you took classified information from Central Command that had a classification marking on it, because that's what's required by DoD regulations, and you put it on an unclassified system. So we're going to get a report in a few days from the DoD Inspector General. And if the DoD Inspector General finds what is pretty obvious, both to you smiling there in the witness seat and to all of us up here, that the information was, in fact, classified, do you plan to take any accountability for that?
As I pointed out at the time,
You said that accountability is back. Does that not apply to you?
as I said at the time, Congressman, there were no names, targets, locations, units, routes, sources, methods, no classified information.
Okay, so if it comes back that it is classified, will you take accountability or not?
As
We've
I
already
said,
established, you've already admitted that it was classified because everything you get from CENTCOM is classified. You just explained that to me. That's how you justified not answering the question.
not what I said. I didn't confirm any classification or
Okay, so if it is
what
confirmed,
I know is that
will you take
everything I
accountability?
share, everything I talk about,
Mr.
as
Secretary,
of
does
Defense
accountability apply to you or not?
is classified whether I talk or not.
Does it apply to you or not?
Does what apply to me or not?
Accountability. You said accountability is back at the Secretary. at the
And you know
Pentagon.
what? The Houthis were held accountable for shooting at our
I'm
ship
just asking if it applies
very
to you.
successfully.
I'm not asking about the
previous
Houthis.
administration let our ships get shot at, and nothing was done about it. And thankfully, because of the skill and courage of our troops on
I'm
the
just
battlefield,
asking about
we
I
actually
reclaim my
put them
time.
in a place
I
where
reclaim
they
my time.
called for a ceasefire.
I claim my time. I'm just asking if accountability applies to you. It's a very simple question. We use leadership by
Of
example.
course, unlike, I serve at the pleasure of the president like everybody else does.
So it only applies to the president, not to you.
I serve at the pleasure.
You talked about the success of the Houthi operation. About how much money did it cost? How much money did you spend on missiles shooting at the Houthis?
Well, you'd have to compare that with what it cost.
I'm just asking how much did it cost?
divert our shipping lanes around.
I'm told
the
it's
sea.
several $100 million, maybe close to $1 billion. How many U.S.-flagged commercial ships have transited the Red Sea since your so-called successful operation?
Well, thankfully, unlike the previous administration.
The answer
we
is
had
zero.
military vessels transit.
No, I didn't ask
just
about
this
military
week.
vessels. I
Well, which
asked
would
about
be the
commercial
precursor
vessels.
for
How many
civilian and
commercial vessels?
transit,
It's been several
thankfully.
weeks. How many commercial vessels, U.S. flagged, have
Well,
transited the
would
Red
you, Mr. Congressman, put civilian ships
The
through
questions
BAM
are not to
before
me,
military
Mr. Secretary,
ships?
they're to you.
We have responsibly put military
The answer
ships
is zero.
through first.
I reclaim my time. How many generals and admirals have you fired?
I don't know the exact number, but
You don't know the number. It's 8. Can you explain why any of them were fired? Like, just explain why was...
they all serve at the pleasure of the president. And I think
No, I'm just asking you why.
General Kane is a great example.
I'm just
of
asking
a
you
leader
why.
that we
I think
need
you
at
probably
this
learned
time.
at Princeton what why means. Why did you fire him?
They serve at the pleasure of the president, and we
Why
want better
did you
representation
fire
in
him?
each and every of those.
You can't
each and
explain
every
why
one
you
of those
fired any of
places.
them?
Gentlemen's time's expired. Chair, and I
And what unfolded inside that committee room revealed far more than a disagreement. It opened a window into how power deflects, how oversight pushes back, and why even a single message on a chat app can matter for lives, strategy, and democracy itself. The moment began with a deceptively simple exchange. Congressman Moulton leaned forward and asked, "Does accountability apply to you, not to the troops, not to junior officers, but to the man sitting in the witness chair?" Secretary Hegseth dodged. He said, "I serve at the pleasure of the president." In other words, accountability runs upward to the Oval Office, not outward to Congress or downward to the troops. That answer might sound like protocol, but in the tense silence of the room it landed differently. Because accountability, when limited only to the very top, often feels like it doesn't exist at all. If only the president can call you to account, what happens to oversight, to rules, to the example leaders are supposed to set? Moulton didn't let it go. He pressed further, and the question shifted from principle to practice. Moulton asked where the launch time for F-18's U.S. jets flying into combat against the Houthis had been sent. Was it shared on an unclassified signal chat? Did that information come from Central Command? The Secretary's answer should have been straightforward. Instead, he pivoted. He talked about operational success, about the skill of the troops, about avoiding specifics because of classification. But in dodging, he left something clear. He wasn't willing to confirm whether that launch time had been handled correctly. Why does that matter? Because a launch time isn't just a timestamp. In the wrong hands, it can reveal when aircraft are vulnerable, when support crews are exposed, when defenses can be timed. A single detail can be the thread that unravels an entire operation's security. Moulton knew that. That's why he kept asking. Because if sensitive details really were put on an unclassified chat app, then the Secretary himself had skirted the very rules designed to protect missions. But that wasn't the whole story. Here's where the stakes rise. Classification in the military isn't bureaucracy. It's not red tape or paperwork. It's survival. Every piece of classified data is marked for a reason. Some information is classified on its own, like the location of a unit or the identity of an intelligence source. Other information becomes sensitive when combined, a launch time plus a base location plus known aircraft patterns. Put them together and you've just handed an adversary a roadmap to ambush. That's why rules exist. That's why systems exist. Classified channels aren't about appearances. They're designed with encryption, access controls, and auditing so mistakes can be caught and leaks can be traced. So when a secretary brushes aside a question with operational success as the answer, it misses the point. You can win a strike and still lose legitimacy if you ignore the rules that keep everyone safe. And that's why Moulton circled back again and again. Will you take accountability if the Inspector General finds mishandling? Moulton asked. It was the most direct version of the question yet. If the watchdog comes back and says classified information was mishandled, will you own up to it? The Secretary dodged again. He said no names, no targets, no methods were exposed. He insisted nothing classified had been shared. But he never answered the core question. And the dodge raised a dangerous contrast. Because ordinary troops don't get that kind of wiggle room. A junior officer who mishandles a marked message can face career-ending consequences. An enlisted service member who posts the wrong picture on social media can be disciplined, sometimes severely. Yet here at the very top, the standard seemed softer, the accountability less clear. Moulton's persistence was about more than one chat log. It was about whether leaders play by the same rules as the people they command. And he wasn't finished. The congressman then shifted the ground. If the secretary wouldn't answer about classification, maybe he would answer about cost. How much did this successful operation cost? Moulton asked. The answer was staggering. Hundreds of millions of dollars, possibly close to $1 billion, and yet despite that immense expense, not a single U.S.-flagged commercial vessel had transited the Red Sea since the operation. In plain terms, we spent nearly $1 billion, fired missiles and risked escalation. But the shipping lanes weren't safer. The deterrence wasn't working. Commercial ships still weren't moving. Success then looked a lot less clear than the Secretary claimed. And Moulton's point landed: you can't measure success only in destroyed targets, you have to measure it in outcomes. But the conversation wasn't just about money, it was also about careers. Moulton asked how many generals and admirals had been fired under this secretary. Hegseth hesitated. He said he didn't know. The real answer was 8. Pressed further, he refused to explain why. He said they served at the pleasure of the president. He offered no reasons, no context, no transparency. The message this sent was stark. The people at the top can be removed without explanation, while the people at the bottom face intense scrutiny for every decision. It reinforced the very accountability gap Moulton was trying to expose. And this is where the hearing shifted from details about classification or budgets to something bigger: trust. Democracies are built on oversight. The military serves under civilian authority, not above it. And oversight isn't just about catching mistakes, it's about showing the public that rules are followed, that decisions have reasons, and that power is exercised within limits. That's why the Inspector General's forthcoming report matters. If it finds violations, consequences should follow. If it finds compliance, that should be explained transparently. Either way, clarity matters more than evasions, because when leaders dodge, trust erodes. And when trust erodes, even victories look like failures. Troops notice, officers notice, the public notices, and adversaries notice too. So what does this moment teach us? That accountability isn't a slogan, it's not a line for press releases, it's a practice. You can spend billions on missiles and call an operation a success, but if the public believes leaders skirt rules, if soldiers believe accountability stops at the top, then legitimacy crumbles. And without legitimacy, no military, no government, no democracy can function. That's why one simple question, does accountability apply to you, was more explosive than any missile fired at the Houthis. It was about the integrity of leadership itself. Now the question shifts to us. Do you believe the Secretary answered responsibly, or should leaders face the same consequences as the people they command when oversight raises red flags? Tell me in the comments below. Keep it focused, keep it civil. Because these conversations aren't just debates, they're the real way accountability happens. And if you want more breakdowns of hearings like this, where the story isn't just what was said but why it matters, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay tuned. Because this debate isn't over. The Inspector General's report is coming. And when it does, the answer to Moulton's question may finally be clear.